This is Team 8 of Kim Hui-won, Lee Nam-hoon, Choa La, and Justin Chan, presenting the Haider Aliyev Center. Today, we will be presenting about the entire process from designers to contractors in nonlinear architecture. I will first briefly talk about our team's purpose and the scope of study. The project manager assigns tasks to the sub-managers below. For example, one is the production manager in charge of aluminum machining. Next, the design and engineer manager is in charge of the main teams around the design. And lastly, there's a site manager who is responsible for the transportation and installation of materials and all of the construction. We classified these major tasks by the location at the factory, at the site, and at the head office. Our presentation will be focused on the final conclusion, a study of the construction process and communication in an irregular shaped building such as the Haider Aliyev Center. Before talking about the panel study, I'd like to give you a brief refresher on the materials used in the Haider Aliyev Center that we presented last week. First is RC, or reinforced concrete. Next is steel. Third is GRFC, or glass fiber reinforced concrete, and GFRP, glass fiber reinforced plastic. And lastly, glass. These are the main materials used in the construction of the building. Among those materials, we studied the production of GFRP and GFRC panels. The contents of the study are as follows. We will cover topics from designing the entire facade to assembling the panels. First, we'll look into the substructure of the GFR panel. This is a study on how one panel is constructed. The primary structure supports the panel at the bottom of the panel assembly. It is connected to the upper structure by the primary fixings of bolts and nuts as shown. Next, the secondary structure is attached. The fixing plates then connect to the decking panel and the first floor of the panel layer. The insulation layer and the waterproof membrane is then attached on top. Lastly, the GFR panel is attached to complete the final assembly. Next, we will be discussing about optimization paneling with BIM. GFR panels are used to express the white and flexible curves on the surface of the building. To do so, the process of paneling the curved surfaces is necessary. We focused on this method and the requirements for it needed to create these curved surfaces. This is done by using generative design. Generative design is an iterative design process that will generate a certain number of outputs that will meet certain constraints. In architecture, this process is used as a designer that will fine-tune the feasible region by changing minimal and maximal values of an interval in which a variable of the program meets the set of constraints. This is the algorithm of generative design process. The Zaha Hadid architecture required simplistic surface data supplied in Rhino program to be translated into a form which could be built. The contractor developed a Grasshopper script to automate the process which translated each 3D panel within the 3D model. It involved a flattened drawing with profile edges and distance information for how much was required to extend and to enable the formwork to be built. In other words, the curvature of each panel and the size of the panel that can be produced by the production machine are considered. This generative design algorithm made it possible to panelize the exterior surface into 13,000 individual panels. Next, we will be discussing about the topology of the panels. The emergence of large-scale freeform shapes in architecture poses big challenges to the fabrication of such structures. The production of curved panels is mostly based on molds. Since the cost of mold fabrication often dominates the panel cost, there is a strong incentive to use the same mold for multiple panels. To do this, they generalize the shape of the panel into 4 different groups: flat, single curved, double curved, and freeform curves. Edge return is the detailing system of the panel. In order to hide substructure when the joints between the panels are viewed from certain angles, the panel is folded at the edge. This aspect helps the facade to appear substantial and monolithic. Of all the different panels, flat panels are the cheapest. Since it is produced without the need for a relatively separate process, the company tries to make the construction of flat panels to occupy the largest area possible. Next in complexity is the single curved panel. Since it is a panel with curvature applied to two edges of the panel's four edges, it occupies the second largest area. Following that is the double curved panel. This panel has curvatures applied to all four edges. And lastly, the freeform panel has curvatures on all four edges with different curvatures on each edge. Next will be manufacturing of the panels. The Hadar Aliyev Center used adaptive mold technology to produce each panel. This picture shows the whole process of this method consisting of 4 stages. The first stage is the Rhino plugin Adaptatools, which is the application used for transferring panel shapes from CAD to the adaptive mold. With Adaptatools, it is easy to select the panels of interest and verify the geometry for production. For the second step, the 3D laser projector shoots a continuous laser beam that spans the membrane surface. The last part of the presentation is assembly. To transport the panels onto the building, large cranes are used to carry each individual piece as it is assembled. 4 ironworkers need to be suspended on the space frame, often without scaffolding, in order to position each of the 4 corners of the panel to the right position. Once the panel is brought into position, the ironworkers have to carefully fix the panels onto 4 bolts at each corner of the panel precisely. And this is the end of our presentation. Thank you.